welcome again. I'm Jody C. and we're with the Douglas County Global Warming Coalition. Today we're chatting with Virginia Cairo, who knows more about heat pumps than any human alive. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
She does know more than most people though. We're sitting on the banks, almost on the banks of the lovely Umpqua River, just real close to a lot of construction, so we hope you can hear us. But we're talking with Virginia about things that she did with heat pumps around her house. So tell us why you did it and how you did it.
Well, my former home, it was a 1949 construction home, and it had a gas furnace in the center of the home with no blowers or fans or anything. And I wanted to make an improvement, and there were a lot of incentives at the time. This was back in 2010. There were a lot of incentives at the time, so I thought, well, let's see what happens. So I went to the home show, and I introduced myself to a lot of contractors, and I came home with 3 business cards of people I felt good talking to.
Yeah.
I invited all of them over to look at my house and talk to me about my objectives. And after all of them came over and they all gave me quotes, I zeroed in on one of them who I felt listened to me. Partly because I had asked for a ducted system, and 2 of them proposed ductless systems, which is not what I wanted because I had an older home. I wanted to put ductwork in, which was going to be a big expense.
Right. Did it not have any ductwork at all?
It had a grate in the upstairs floor.
Okay. Yeah.
So I wanted to get a ducted system to spread the warmth out, and when you have a ducted system, you can adjust where the heat goes. There's little valves and things in the ducts, so you can adjust where most of the heat goes versus where less heat goes. And so that's what I wanted. The contractor I worked with steered me away from ducting the upstairs. So we only ducted the downstairs because the going upstairs was going to make the house ugly, in my opinion, because we were going to have to come up the sides of the house with hardware.
Okay.
And I didn't want to do that. There was already a grate in the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so we dealt with that in other ways. So I hired a contractor. He gave me an estimate. I looked at the estimate and looked at the payback period, which has to do with what my potential cost savings was over time versus the amount that I was going to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And it evened out at 15 years, which is good for a heat pump. That's the old lifetime of a heat pump is around 15 years, but they're getting built better every year, so now it could go up to 25 or 30 years for a heat pump. So anyway, so I decided to go with it, and we didn't treat the upstairs. Oh, I want to back up. One of the reasons I also wanted to go with the heat pump is it is Roseburg. It was Roseburg, and I had no air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets really hot in the summer, and one of the things about heat pumps is it does provide cooling in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Because of how the system works. It extracts heat from cold air in the winter and brings the heat indoors, but it also works the opposite direction when it's hot outside. It goes the other direction too.
Okay.
For air conditioning. And so that actually, the comfort of having ducts and an even temperature through the house,
Mm-hmm.
and the comfort of having air conditioning in the summer was the final straw on why I moved forward with it.
So what were the incentives offered by the government?
So I forgot to mention, when I came back from the home show, I cross-referenced the contractors that I had talked to and made sure they were Energy Trust allies, energy trade allies, which is through the state.
Okay.
Oregon Energy Trust has trade allies, and so when you hire someone like that, they know about all the incentives. They do the paperwork for you.
Yay.
They've been trained at that.
Yeah.
And so when they provide you with the quote, they're also adding in all those tax incentives, which can be it can be rebates, it can be refunds, it could be lots of things. It depends on the year and the administration, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was one of the things I did was cross-reference the trade allies with the contractors I had met at the home show.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So what did you notice in terms of comfort? Was it a steady heat? Was it nothing that you had to wrestle with or work with or figure out? Was it easy to do?
It was easy to do. It came with it wasn't what's currently called a smart thermostat, but it was a thermostat that you could say when to turn on and when to turn off. If anything, one of the negatives was the sound, because I hadn't had a ducted system before. But the contractor I hired was very sensitive to sound, and so they tried to do everything they could so that, like, the intake wouldn't whistle when it sucked all the air into it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pleasant. It was nice.
So were they easy to work with? And, like, for example, after it's all put in, would they come back out if you had an issue?
Yeah,
Okay.
they did, because I had some final tweaking to do with the ductwork and which rooms I wanted warmer and which rooms I wanted cooler. So yeah, they did come back out. And part of that was some rooms had bigger pipes carrying the air in because of what it looked like under the house. When you're working with old construction, you got to work with the floor joists and everything like that. You can't just go one direction all the time. Sometimes you have to just go the other direction and put a bigger pump in, or put a bigger duct in.
So for you, was it, I mean, people who watch this program, some people are going to make changes because it's winds up being more economical for them. Other people, the vision is bigger or broader, and they want to save the planet. And where did you fall in that? Or do you want to do all of it?
I fell into the comfort zone.
Okay.
And here's another tidbit I didn't add. There was an incentive at the time to have a dual fuel system. I already had gas to the house. Heat pumps, the older heat pumps, are most efficient down to 40 degrees. Below 40 degrees, they're working hard, they're using more energy. It just has to do with how the process works. So I had a dual fuel put in that was natural gas when it got down below 35 degrees.
Okay.
And but 95% of the time the heat pump worked with electricity, which can be a renewable resource. It just depends on where your electricity is coming from and where it's sourced.
Yeah.
So
Was that you riding a stationary bike in the kitchen?
no. I rates a lot of the appliances and things by how efficient they are. And it also, actually, it has a list showing you can buy one of these 10 refrigerators, for example, and you can get a rebate or some kind of incentive from it.
They walk you through the process?
No, there's links and tables.
Okay.
When it comes to appliances, it's usually people doing the research on their own. So Oregon Energy Trust and Energy Star, and then just this morning I just plugged into Google the search for the Inflation Reduction Act, and I found a lot of links there too, which are current for incentives for the next 10 years really. And there's automotive incentives, there's heat pumps, there's you click the button and it just unrolls and shows you a lot of things. And it also talks about qualifications too.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be a lot of sideboards with some of those.
So if you hire a contractor, you would expect that they would know at least some of that information on those various websites,
The
right?
energy trade allies on the Oregon Energy Trust website are trained on how to do the paperwork, so they know what components qualify. And the Mahalo, the contractor I worked with, filled out the paperwork for me. All I had to do was sign it and send it in with my taxes.
Okay.
So
Good. Thank you. That's good information to know.
yeah.